Hello, this is the front desk.
Good morning and welcome to episode 82 of the Crackin podcast with your hosts, Dr. Terry Wyman and Dr. Spencer Barron. How you doing this morning, guys?
I'm doing great, Lance.
Good, Lance. Good to see you.
That's great to hear. So today we are joined by Dr. Dana Sinclair. Dr. Sinclair is a founder and partner of Human Performance International, a Toronto-based management consulting firm. She's been working with athletes in a spread of disciplines since 2000, as well as high-level medical and corporate organizations. Dr. Sinclair is a registered psychologist and holds doctorates from the University of Cambridge and the University of Ottawa. How are you doing this morning, Dr. Sinclair?
Great. Thanks for having me, guys.
You know,
It's great to hear.
When I got your name presented to me to try and go, try and get you as our podcast, I read a little bit about your bio, and I'll admit, I was really intimidated. I was like, oh boy, what can can a Southern California guy ask this woman? And I was so impressed with, and then I saw Cambridge, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, I'm done. But a lot of people don't. They think of sports psychologists. They think of, marriage and child and family psychologists, but they don't think of performance psychologists. And before we really get into the meat of what we talk about, I want to hit right off the bat, what is a performance psychologist so the audience kind of understands what you do?
Right. Okay. So I am a psychologist, and I just happen to work with high performers or any kind of performer in sport, school, like in any event you want to do, anything to do with performance. That's my cohort. Those are the groups that I work with. So my main job is to help people learn how to manage their emotions when they feel pressure. Right? When it's easy when it's, every day you've got your skills, no pressure, go ahead and do it. It's in those pressure moments that I come into play. And that's where it gets fun.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's interesting. Again, reading some of your bio, I had the privilege of working with the Los Angeles Kings for a year. And one of the things I realized very soon on that athletes are commodities, especially when it comes to GMs and even some of the coaches. They don't view these athletes as people. They view them as commodities to make money for their organization. And looking up some of your stuff, do you work for the athlete, or do you work for the coach, or do you work for the GM, almost like an investment counselor, to pick people that are going to best fit their organization?
Right. Well, it's all of those. I do work as part of the risk management team with some of these teams in terms of draft. So I'll go to the combines and assess players for them and help them determine who's going to fit best in the culture, who's a red flag, who's going to be trouble, who actually has a really good head and will be able to make the most of their talent. So once I've done that, though, once they come on board and I'm part of the development team, then I'm really working for the athlete. I might get paid in some situations of getting paid by the team, in other situations of getting paid by the athlete. But when I'm getting paid by the team, I do have to obviously help the coach, help the GM, but my main focus is taking care of the athlete.
Yeah, interesting.
Dr. Dana.
That's how I do it.
Yes. I love the combination of working for the team and the player. There's some comments I would like to address later on, but what I really would like to know is, you have these thoughts about perfection, which every athlete seems to strive for, but you have a different take on perfection. What would that sound like?
Oh, yes. I do think trying to be perfect is a script for failure for anybody. I think you have to aim for excellence or good enough. If you are perfection is not possible anyway. So you don't want to set yourself up right at the beginning. So it's all about being as good as you can be, getting the most out of yourself in those pressure moments. So just be good. Don't try to be perfect.
My father used to say he hated the term "give it 100%." He goes, "100% is impossible."
I
Yeah,
agree.
he goes, he goes, if you could give me 90%, you'll be better than most of the people out there. So that's a different, interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, well, we all want results. We all want to be good at what we do, but it's not always easy to get the most out of ourselves. So what I do is more about trying to help people be consistent when they feel the burn, when they feel the pressure, because
Mm,
the talent isn't what derails people, or it isn't what ensures success. It's the mindset, it's the approach that's
mm,
going to allow them to get the results.
Hmm.
mm.
Have Have you seen a loss or a gain? And now, when I say mental toughness,
Mm,
there's two parts to this question. I mean,
okay.
if you've seen a difference in the last couple of years, and then I would love for you to comment on something that I learned from one of our psychologists from Miami Dolphins, and that was there's a difference between mental toughness and mental resilience. So that's two parts. So you can answer the first question.
Okay. Well, mental toughness really means to me, I think a lot of these terms are overused, like grit and resilience too. But I think mental toughness is just being able to get the most out of yourself, or get your skills out of yourself when you're scared, basically, when you're worried that you can't. The resilience part, well, learning to cope with adversity is probably the best thing you can do for yourself, because it's not always going to go your way, right? And and also, when it is going your way, that's tough too, because then people get in their heads and get distracted and worry about expectations and whatnot. So I tend not to talk in those kind of terms. In fact, I even say, confidence overrated. Don't need it. You might want it, but you don't need it, especially if you got the skills.
And generationally, have you seen changes over the years? We as baby boomers, we certainly know that the awards that kids get now for just participating and don't yell at the kid and all that.
Oh yeah,
Just
yeah.
what have you seen different over the years?
Yeah, at the upper levels, not much change. In terms of sort of the yelling and the screaming and the commodity driven business and whatnot. I do think that the more progressive managers and coaches are different. I'm thinking of, right off the top of my head, like a Tony Dungy or a Jim
Mm.
Caldwell. They didn't yell, they didn't scream. In fact, every time practice was over, everybody go in to hear what he had to say, and I was always in there trying to get closer because I couldn't hear, because he's just talking normally. He's just talking normally. Everybody's quiet. They respect them. They pay attention. They work hard for them. The yellers and the screamers, when someone's trying to eat your face off, it's hard to hear them, right? So there is a change, but there's still a lot of that kind of coaching going on. And parents are still doing it too, by the way. So there's probably not as much change as we'd like to think.
Yeah, I think at Miami Dolphins, I went through 10 coaches, starting with Coach Don Shula, the celebrity coach. I mean, and
Yeah.
what a peaceful warrior. I mean, he knew how to yell, but it was inspiring. And
Right.
Bill Parcells was another one. Now, Nick Saban was the complete antithesis of that. He ran
Right.
a program out of fear, and I don't know.
Yeah.
if that
I don't
was
mind
the-
yelling, and sometimes yelling is great and you need it. But if you're belittling people and denigrating them all the time, it's not really going to help their cause. So
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
use your yelling smartly.
It's interesting. You mentioned earlier about being part of the combines and the determination of this athlete. Is he going to be coachable? Is he going to be a problem?
Mhm.
Are there going to be abuses involved in his future?
Yes.
Actually, I remember coming back in our training room with when Nick Saban was coaching. There were volumes of psychological workups. I mean, what goes on in that behind the scenes there?
Right. Okay. So this is very interesting area, because when you're trying to psychologically assess someone, I do it from a behavioral standpoint. I want to know what their default behaviors are, what the strengths are, what's likely to distract them, their default behavioral style, performance style. I think that you have to do it a certain way, and you can't get too caught up in all the psychological assessments, because people are good fakers, right? They're there trying to get a job.
Yeah.
They're not just going to tell you the truth all the time. You have to be able to sort of suss it out and get in there and really have a conversation with them too, to figure out what's true and what's not. Now, I'm not saying that everybody lies. A lot of times people just want to put their best foot forward, or they think they're saying the right thing. You just have to kind of cut through that to get to the real person. That's all. And you don't have much time to do it.
Ooh, that's right. Is that tough to do? Yeah. Is that tough to really determine? I mean, we always say as a female, you have better gut instincts than some of us guys do. Does that play a part in when you're asking this, similar questions?
It does, but obviously I'm going off of a structure and certain questions or certain responses. But I'm trying to, if the person is comfortable with you, then you can have a proper conversation and know what you need to help them develop if they do come with your team. Now, and I'm very careful, because I know I don't want to be playing with somebody's career, and I'm very serious about it, because I wouldn't want to make an assumption about their behavioral style that I'm way off of. So I'm very careful, because it's important.
Do my curiosity is always aroused by the fact that when you, like yourself, you play two roles for an athlete. You work for the team, and then you could work for the athlete on a personal basis. And you have this, when you're working for a team, you have this allegiance to the team, to make the right decisions. But what happens if a player hires you personally and you find out they're having some real, clinical problems that could affect, the team? I mean, you obviously, HIPAA requires you to keep it separate.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah, well, as a psychologist, obviously there's confidentiality that I have to pay strict attention to, of course. How I've handled that before is, usually if it gets to that sort of serious degree, the athlete needs help, wants help, they will, I will definitely get them the resources they need or deal with that, but they will let the team know. I can't, unless there's, potential for harm, I can't go to the team and say, hey, this guy is having trouble. But that hasn't actually happened, because they've gone off and got the help they need, or they've gone to the team themselves. Yeah.
Do you feel that social media
and
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to tell you, the confidentiality thing can be difficult for teams, not for me, because I'm there for the athlete. I can't divulge anything or whatnot. But anyway, I'm with the team. I'm around, frequently. I'm on the plane, on the bus, at practice, at the meals, wherever. So people see me talking to people or hanging out or whatever, on the sidelines. But, some teams, some management teams who are not progressive, they have in their mind that they're going to hire someone like me so they can find out who am I talking to and what I'm saying. And actually, Toronto Blue Jays, I got fired. It's one time I got fired because they kept at me after they hired me. Okay, who are you talking to? Well, I can't tell you. You can sort of see who I'm talking to, and you can go ask them. They wanted me to put a list together, sort of daily, of who I was talking to and what we were talking about. So I didn't last long there. I was gone.
Yeah.
I got canned.
I understand that.
I wouldn't have made
I
it
wasn't
either.
happy about it either.
No, I wouldn't have made it either. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that says a lot for your respect for the athlete.
Absolutely. A lot of your ethics and all that. Have you seen, Spencer was going to ask this, but have you seen the social media? How does that come into play in your world as far as with the athletes?
Well, it does. Obviously, I think the biggest thing, whether it's, you know, big football players, race car drivers, or young female tennis players, they all see the comments, right? And they some have a harder time with it than others, but they all get those comments, and they just have a workaround for their particular personality. Some have to just stop looking. Others can look and laugh or share, like, mean tweets, all that kind of thing. But uh, it does have an impact. But I haven't had anything major
Really?
go wrong, even though I know it contributes to, like, if you're playing well and everything's going well, you can handle it, right?
Right.
If you're not, and then you get piled on with this, then we've got a problem. I'm always saying that, one of the best ways to stay on the right side of your mental health is to take care of your game, to take care of performing under pressure, right? If you can manage those emotions and get the most out of yourself, you'll likely be okay.
I mean, it's such a different. I mean, the last 10, 15 years, it's such a different.
Mhm.
It's a new thing to be added to your plate, because now these pros have millions of followers, where before they knew they had fans, but now they're on a screen in front of them,
Mhm.
and some of their sponsors require them to make X amount of posts, or this or
Yep.
that. So it's adding another element to their playing field, and then they get glued into it, they get sucked into it, they get all that. It's how do you for a new kid coming out of high school or college, how do you what tools do you give them to navigate that barrier, or put a barrier up?
Yeah. Well, one is business, right? And a lot of them want that because it means money.
Right.
So again, it's the same tools that one would use to apply to their game on the field as they would to the pressures that they feel off the field. So, there's a process that I use, that I take players through, and it's, you've got to figure out what your distractions are, or what derails you. That's the very first thing. Like, what types of things frustrate you, bother you? What are your hot spots? Because for some people, that's not a problem. Other people, it really bothers them. So once you've figured out what your hot spot is, and if it is the social media comments, then you've got to decide, okay, there's, a number of skills that I can use. Like, when I'm handling it well, how am I talking to myself? Where's my tension level? Am I thinking about sort of the facts and my accomplishments? Does that help me? Can I imagine how I'm going to handle it the next time? So those are the types of skills that we use to then take to the next step, which is to put it in a simplified plan, so that when it happens again and you start to feel yourself get upset or derailed, you can go to that plan and lock right back into what you're supposed to be saying to yourself, getting your tension down, and moving on with the focus in the moment. It's all about being able to calm down and focus in the moment, whether it's social media or a tough conversation with a coach, or trying to hit a fastball.
Hmm.
So you, I think one of the most important things that, well, at least Dr. Terry and I get to see, because we see a lot of physical injuries, and
Yeah.
where, that have an emotional component to it, and you try to inspire the patient, right? And
Mhm.
a very astute intern who was doing his athletic training work, he decided for his thesis he was going to determine the statistical the quantification of how many guys are injured after a loss versus how many are injured after a win. And I mean, the answer to that question, but to see the numbers was fascinating. So
Right.
with the regards to the injuries, especially ones that could be season-ending injuries, could you describe how you approach an athlete that comes to you with they're going through the stages of grief and all that? What would you say to them, or how do you approach that?
Well, it has to be straight up. It's like, this is really bad, or unfortunate, or I'm really sorry. This is terrible, never fun. And let them talk to you, let them get it out, let them say if they are, like, some people are more devastated than others, but just letting them talk to you about how bad they feel and what it could mean to them. That's the first thing you do. And then you have to go from there. They have to sort of not be jollied along, right? Oh, at least this, or, it'll be okay. It's just like, tell me how you're feeling. This is not cool. I get it. And I'm interested, though, from you guys, what kind of injuries, when you see that emotional component coming in there, what symptoms do you see, or how do you pick that up?
Well, a lot of what I teach my interns is to give the player hope. They're coming to you. For us, they're coming to us voluntarily. They'll come to us. They don't have to come to us, but they come to us voluntarily, and they look for answers. They want to know, what's wrong? Can we help them? How long is it going to take? That's pretty much it. So, and they want to be given hope, that one day they'll play again. So then, like you said, you go from there where you start listening with a keen ear and trying to, provide them, the truthful answers with a inspirational perspective. I mean, that's how I try to approach it. Terry?
And
I mean, I see a lot of, and I'm interested in your opinion on this, Doc, but I see a lot of, they come in and when you talk to them, they're level 10 out of 10 pain. But then you go, you know what? This is not as bad as you think it is. All of a sudden their pain drops to a 5.
right.
And, or you go, this is as bad as you think it is. And it still drops to an 8, it's, and so I think sometimes, as you said, talk about them or just give them, this is where we're at, and not just beating around the bush, but they come in and the brain just says, this is effed up and I can't move.
Yeah.
And I'm a level 10 out of 10. Their acidity is through the roof. Their biochemistry is through the roof. Their anxiety is through the roof. And I think that all attributes to a pain factor as well.
Yeah. So it's the freak out that we see, right? And but do you guys see like maybe lower back pain, or does anything else manifest that you think, I think this guy's super anxious and it's interfering with his desire to get back on the field?
I'll tell you that actually is a great question, because I'll usually explain to a patient, because I've got 37 years under my belt of extraordinary experiences with guys who fractured their leg and they get back in action within 2 months. I mean, phenomenal healing. Yeah. But it's really, I didn't even want to take them on as patients, but you determine they got that attitude that's appropriate for healing and getting back in the game. And then there's ones with minor injury, minor injuries, and they're ready to quit.
Yeah, it's like they have to be 100% before they can step on the practice field again, because they feel if they're not 100, yes, they'll be no good, or they won't be able to sustain, consistent play or something. Whereas other people, okay, my 80% is better than your 100%, so let's go, right?
I also will talk to them about the sympathetic nervous system, because that sits right kind of like the right shoulder or in the lower back. So when they're in that fight and flight mode, you'll see a lot of right neck pain or right shoulder pain or lower back pain, because they're in that fight and flight mode, and you calm that down, and all of a sudden they stop rubbing that right shoulder and they start feeling a little better. So
interesting.
So I've seen that as well, that whole fight and flight kind of comes in, and their anxiety is up to here. And as soon as you drop that down, some of their physical pain is manifested down too.
Yeah, because when they get so tense, obviously it's not going to feel very good.
No.
Right.
No.
So, and everything's going to be exacerbated. So I know a lot of my job too is about getting the tension level down so we can think it through.
I got to ask you one thing. When you have an athlete, especially like in hockey or even baseball, and their shifts are bam, 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 and they had a really bad shift, what tips do you give them to make that mental switch so they can come back out next time and they're ready to go?
Right. Well, it's good that they do have shifts. They've got tons of time. A shift is really a long enough time to settle down, regroup for your next shift, as opposed to having to keep going, right? So
Right.
different sports, it's six of one, half times the other for whatever sport. Let's say with hockey, um, when usually their tension's up if they've had a bad shift, coach is yelling at them. They're worried they're going to be a healthy scratch the next game. They won't be in the lineup, whatever. It's all about one, getting that tension down, whether it's breathing or taking a sip of water or talking to the guy beside you. They've got to get that tension down and then talk to themselves about, okay, next shift, what am I supposed to be doing here? And it's pre-planned cues, really, like whether I have to just keep moving my feet, or I've got to make sure I finish my checks, or I've really got to make sure my passes are, right to my target. So I got to follow through. Basic stuff like that is extremely, extremely helpful, because then they've got something in their head that they're telling their body what to do. So they don't necessarily have time to drift back over into that list of derailers or hotspots or things that scare them or bother them. We can get them back over. We can shift them back over here by calming them down and getting them onto, oh yeah, what am I doing again? This. Same in every sport or in any performance endeavor.
See,
I mean, exams too, right?
Yeah, I was interesting to see how a Eastern Canadian would do this, because in California we just send them to yoga class, and so I just was wondering how somebody from the East Coast would handle that stuff, because we do a lot of yoga and a lot and all that kind of stuff. So I said that but it's just not as fast as what you just said. So I think we'll tell the coaches to adapt to your way of thinking there.
Yeah, and I am from Vancouver, so I kind of get the yoga thing.
Oh, yeah? Okay. You're still north. I mean, I'm in SoCal,
I know.
so
I know.
we have our way of doing things. It's it's a calming thing. We don't want to yell. It works sometimes, but sometimes it just takes too long. So anyway,
Dr. Sinclair, do you teach them to do certain things on the fly? Like I'll give you an example. I have I had a rower that told me once that if she just rubs her fingertips together just ever so lightly, it changes her state. It calms down. So it's like something on the fly that they can do. Do you have that, like maybe a conditioning response that they can?
Well, it's the breathing thing that's the best right now, and that obviously touching her fingers, that sort of triggered her into her relaxation mode, right? So that made her start thinking about probably breathing differently and relaxing the shoulders and whatnot. So if a breath, I don't teach certain little triggers, because that's for anybody to come up with. I usually like to get directly to telling your body what to do, and sort of drill down to the actual thing they need to do. Because for some people, if that works, great. But for other people, they'll just be doing this and wondering their head's going to be somewhere else, right? So it's pretty individual.
Yeah, I imagine. There's a big problem occurring in the NFL, and my former boss used to tell me, and this was back in 2013, he goes, "You watch, we're going to start reading about it, and it's going to be a big, big problem." Adderall and the drug of choice in a lot of sports now. And it's so easy to get. You just got to say you have ADHD. Talk to us about that.
Well, they have put in, I think, a lot of barriers to that, sort of to slow that down. I certainly know in Major League Baseball, you do have to have a diagnosis of ADHD or ADD from a certified MLB physician. So it's not as Wild West as it used to be. So I know it's kind of a drug of choice, but there are stopgaps in terms of trying to stop just random drug giving. And those with, performance psychology programs too are trying to equip these guys young, like in the minor leagues, with, some self-responsibility and some self-regulation techniques so that they can manage themselves at the plate or, on the field, so that they're feeling better about what they can do and not so distracted in the pressure. That's the hope, anyway.
I was fascinated. New York Times published an article last year about Adderall, and I was fascinated that there was such a marketing machine behind it, that the name Adderall, the guy who discovered, or the one of the marketing people in the company that that manufactures Adderall, said that we're going to call this substance Adderall as an ad for all, ADD, attention deficit disorder, which was what ADHD was called. Ad for all is Adderall.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the marketing concept behind it. Okay, so we do this for a lot of the podcasts, and we have this rapid fire questioning that I'm sure, as intelligent and sharp as you are, you're going to be quick on your toes, but we're going to ask 5 questions. Are you ready, Dr. Sinclair?
I have no choice.
Slow it down a little bit. She is Canadian, so just I had to put that in there.
It's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Okay.
Now she's going to be fired up now.
You know what? I'm shooting with a Canadian today in about 2 hours, so I have to get my digs into my Canadian people. So because he's going to tear it apart. So
good.
Right,
I hope he does.
Oh, he will. Go,
all right,
Doc.
Question number 1, Dr. Sinclair. What is your jam music, your go-to music to get fired up and get excited about something, or maybe in competition or activity or what have you?
Rhythm and blues, disco.
Wow.
I was not expecting that.
Not at all. You mean like Saturday Night Fever disco?
Oh, you mean like some Bee Gees stuff? Yeah, they're okay too. Yeah.
Love
Okay.
that. Love
Question number 2. Best initial trick, if you want to call it that, to get an athlete over fear of return to play.
Oh, you got to get them to slow down and breathe.
Good one.
Always number 1.
Number 3. Best trick to keep an athlete focused.
Getting them to tell their body what to do right now. Have 1 or 2 cues that, as long as they know if they do, they're great. It's all about the do, not about how they feel. I don't care how they feel. I care what they do. Well, I do care how they feel, but you know what I mean.
Love that.
No, I know what you mean. That's good.
Love that.
Number 4. What is your most challenging behavior characteristic in a pro athlete?
Ooh, lack of conscious restraint.
Ooh, explain, please.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like low impulse control. When they just don't really care about what the rules are or sort of the appropriate behavior, and they do things that get them into trouble because they have a hard time controlling that.
I just got goosebumps because I was going to ask you an earlier question about what we referred to it as no awareness of consequences. They do things that are illegal or any of the abuses, and they don't think 2 steps ahead, 5 steps ahead as to what the consequences are.
They kind of know. They just are so reactive. They just do and will deal with the impulsive consequences later. I hope they get away with it.
Good one. Number 5, and the last one. Best advice to a parent of a promising young athlete.
Back off.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Terry and I talk about often that we see a lot of adult-styled injuries in youth now because the parents have them competing 24/7.
Yes. Okay. And how young are you seeing this?
Teens. 11
young.
and 12 years old.
Yeah. 12-year-olds.
There's so much vicarious living from these parents, and it's common. And they push, they yell, and these like 12-year-olds, I'm seeing these 12-year-old, say, tennis players who can crush their fathers on the court, yet the father still feels he needs to coach and tell this kid what to do.
Ugh.
Blows my mind.
We have these young female tennis players. They just started having their periods and things like this. They're just starting to mature, and they come in with these injuries. And I go, I've seen this amongst pro athletes. I go, how often do you play? They go, oh, Monday through Friday, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. And I go, what do you do on the weekends? Oh, well, we compete on the weekend. And I go,
yeah.
And it's absurd.
I know. And I agree with you. Physically, it's absurd. And then psychologically, too, with the development of self-identity. At 16, that's all they know themselves to be able to do and all they see themselves being worthy of. And it comes into some problems, obviously, later on, because not everybody's going to make the big leagues, right?
Yeah.
I see a sport that I never thought that would be like that is dancers. Dancers will train 4 to 7 hours a day, 6 days a week, and then sometimes it's 7 days a week. And
yes,
they train before school, they go to school, they train till 10 o'clock at night, and then they have to try and figure out when they're going to get their homework done. And
yes,
it's crazy.
it is. It's overwhelming.
Terry,
and I would say for what?
Yeah. You just brought something up.
No, go ahead.
One of the biggest things that we're seeing now in our office, and that is, and now I think it's getting a lot of recognition, is the student athlete and what they contend with. And I sent Dr. Terry a video out of a college regarding mental health, and it was dedicated to about 5 or 6 athletes that had committed suicide. And of all the videos I sent Terry, he goes, one of them was his patient. Right, Terry?
Right. Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, do you consult with student athletes as well as, at the pro level stuff? Yeah.
Yes.
That's a tough one. That's a tough
one.
Have you seen anything change over the last 10 years, but especially after the COVID years?
The only thing that I can really say I've seen change, because for me, it's all based on the individual, really. The only thing I've really seen change, and it's a bit off of what you're saying, but the stigma attached to mental health or performance psychology has changed. It's better. It's way more accepted, but there's still difficulties when it comes to mental health, or, gee, I'm not feeling great today. I think we're still working on that, but it's way better than it used to be.
So you did great with your 5 rapid fire questions. This could be a rapid fire. You're welcome. You answered some things that were really fascinating, actually. This could have been a rapid fire question, but I want to, bring a more positive light to some of the questioning here and ask you, in your years of experience with all these teams that you work with, who's been your favorite, most well-respected coach, and why?
Well, there have been quite a few of them, but I will say the 2 that pop to mind, I'm just thinking football because I'm on football. Tony Dungy and Jim Caldwell were great for a variety of reasons. Good people. Oh gosh, there are many others, and there are many others in management, like Bill Polian and guys like that. Were excellent and very progressive. And I enjoyed working with them. Bobby Clark. I got my first pro team, Philadelphia Flyers, through Bobby Clark. I met him at the Olympics and did some assessments for him, and then worked for them for years. He was very progressive and very, very kind to people. you wouldn't know that about him. So a lot of good guys in the game.
That's great. Yeah, the Tony Dungy had this program called All Pro Dad that I have a great relationship with my kids, but I participated in it, and it was really enlightening. And Tony is the accelerant to that program for fathers that want to be better fathers, and it's actually a really cool thing. He's such a great guy, such a great guy.
That's
cool. And like Don Mattingly, guys like that too are great.
Yeah. Is there something that the average Joe who's not an elite athlete, what's some things you can give them to apply to their own life to make them just be a little better?
Okay. Well, funny you should ask. I'm just about finishing a book for Simon & Schuster, and I got 2 chapters to go, so I got to get moving. And it's basically on performing under pressure, getting more out of yourself when it matters the most. And it's for everybody. So it's not just talking about athletes or business executives. It's sort of ideas that work for whatever level of performance you're at. And it's all about, as I say, getting results and just getting a little bit more out of yourself when you really want it or need it, when it's meaningful to you. So the process in there, I say there are ideas, about fear of failure and confidence and things like that I would like people to rethink the way we're traditionally thinking about it. And then sort of the process, how to do it. Okay, as I said, I've got to figure out what really gets in my way. Am I making excuses? Am I just always really anxious? Am I just trying, am I holding back because I don't want to really try my best, because then if I don't actually get it, then I can say, well, I could have, if I'd really tried, sort of that self-sabotage going on, getting people to sort of figure out for themselves what is getting in the way so they can think, oh, okay, well, am I good with that, or am I going to get by that? Oh, I think maybe I better do it differently because I actually think I can be better. And then, just some skills, as I say, the tension control, the breathing, the using your self-talk properly, figuring out what your accomplishments are, what your facts are. People are so reluctant to celebrate the good stuff. As soon as they achieve something, they say, well, it's supposed to happen anyway, and they move on to the next. I'm saying, no, stop. Hey, you've got some facts in here that are achievements that are actually worthwhile paying attention to, because then when they write them down and they read them out, it's like, oh yeah, that guy on the page, he's actually pretty good. And it just helps people recalibrate their perspective, and then they can get on to what they have to do in the moment to play the game or do their speech or whatever it is. So some basic skills, and really the philosophy from my way of working is coach yourself. I want to give somebody some skills to make them independent, to figure out what they're doing, on a good day versus a bad day. Let's replicate those good things. Off you go do it. Come back to me when you need me. We'll check in and whatnot, but you've got to do it. So here's how to do it. Off you go.
They always say hindsight's 20/20 or whatever that says. There's a lot of athletes that will come in and they're holding on to that belligerent parent who was pushing them when they were 9, or they hold on to that coach that yelled them from that. Yeah. And in the moment, that coach or that parent may have been thinking they were doing the right thing, but they weren't, because there's no manual or anything like that. And they have cognitive thinking where the athlete may not have cognitive thinking. So they're trying to see stuff the athlete may not see. And as that athlete grows, and they're holding on to some of these past things, what skills can you give them to let go or to move forward?
Well, same skills come into play. And I was just going to back up there and say, parents, they might think they know, but the common sense comes into play too, right? So I do have a number of parents in my office, and, it gets a little contentious sometimes because they don't want to hear it, right?
Right.
And it's my job. I'm working for the kid or the athlete. It's my job to help the athlete and and open it up for the parent to maybe see that there's a different perspective.
Right.
Gosh, I just had one athlete, adult. I won't tell you the sport. At a big international competition, got there, parents arrived, and the mother was all over it, getting after the athlete about wanting this and wanting that, and the athlete didn't know what to do. So we had talked about it, but the athlete finally went to the parents and said, "Hey, look, this is my time. You got to back off. I got to do this. You're getting in the way." And the parents did. And the athlete came second in the world. So good for you, right?
Yeah.
Good
Right.
for you. So being able to, the communication part, so many people are cautious, risk adverse on the passive side. They don't want conflict or confrontation. And I'm always pushing them a little bit. Hey, if you can take it, fine, but you might want to have a conversation and say how you really feel. Damn torpedoes and see what happens, right? Because sometimes parents just keep pushing until someone says, "Hey, this isn't working for me."
That's powerful. It's
Yeah.
interesting that to deal with the parent is more difficult. It is sometimes more difficult than to deal with the patient or the child or the kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Parents can be in the way.
Do you have the parent
Yeah.
come in? Do you ask,
Yeah.
or does the kid or the student or athlete ask for the parent?
If they're young, the parent often wants to be involved and come in, and I don't. I let them come in for the first time just to explain what's going on. But as far as the interaction between me and the athlete, I kick the parents out, and I learned that a long time ago. I made a mistake a long time ago. It was a star NHL player I was working with, and it was going great. And his father arrived and to the city, wasn't from there, and the player said to me, "Hey, my dad's here. He wants to come into our meeting, or he wants to come with me. Is that okay?" I said, "Sure." I'm thinking the father is going to sit in the waiting room and wait while we're doing this. I was looking around. The father was in my office sitting down comfortably before I even told him where to go. Like, I thought he just walked into my office and sat there. And it was sort of earlier career for me. And I thought, okay, well, we'll just do this. I can do this. Because it had been going well. And botched the whole thing. The player wasn't comfortable. The father was sitting there like this because he had been coaching this player to stardom, right, all these years, and he was not happy with someone else talking hockey. So yeah, it didn't go well. I think halfway through I sort of asked him to leave, but I should have never have let it happen. So
we learned.
I learned something.
We learned by our mistakes.
We all learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap up with two questions for you, and one of them is, you have a wonderful history of experiences with pro teams, and I could see why. You're very approachable. You just have such a nice character, refreshing character about you. But if you were to ask some of your patients to describe you, what would that sound like?
Tough, but fair, and listens and is helpful quickly.
Very nice.
I love that.
Yeah, that's the way we all should be. And finally,
Well, I try.
yeah,
That's the big key.
we all
We
try.
try.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We all try. Sounds good, but gosh, yeah, we try. Yep.
And for our listeners that are anxious to hear just a few little words of wisdom, if you could get one message out to all the people in the athletic world, what would that message be?
Confidence. Remember, it is overrated. You might want it, you don't need it. Get focused on what you have to do out there. Get off of how you feel. You can worry about how you feel later. In the moment, get to the do. It's if you get to the do, as in your assignment or what you have to do to execute. Those just 2 or 3 things that if you do, you're going to do a good job. If you do that, you're going to get results, which will make you happy, which will make you feel confident. That's how it goes, not the other way around. Don't be thinking, I need to be confident to be able to play. Like I have so many guys who say, well, how can they expect me to play well? I've lost my confidence. And I'm like, come on now. Your skills are still there. Let's go. So, and they can pull it together very quickly if they change their way of thinking about it. We have to reverse it. It's all about what you got to do in the skills.
Love that.
Do. Yeah,
So it's about getting the mindset, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, don't try, just do.
But you have to think your way through the do. People are always saying, oh, just don't think, just do it. No, you're going to be thinking out there anyway. The idea is to put the right things in your head, not just leave it to chance and hope it works.
Fantastic.
That's great.
Doc, that was fantastic. Yeah,
I love these
Thank you so much for your I do too.
I had fun. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you so much for your time and putting up with us south of North Americans, and so we really appreciate your time and all you bring to sports, because I've learned a lot as a performance psychologist. This is fantastic, and please, I'm going to reach out to you before this airs. I'm going to get a link. If you have anything related to your book, we'd like to promote it
thank you.
And help you everything we can. So best of luck to everything you do, and keep helping all the people out there.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed speaking with you guys. So
Same.
Maybe
Thank
again.
you.
Oh, I love that. Love that.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Crackin' podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and make sure you follow our Instagram at Crackin' podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.